the thing that forces me to put my password in again.
Okay, better now than later. Oh, hello everyone. This is episode 174. We are recording a day early just to give me that extra day to prepare. Today is for me Wednesday morning, a bit later because you guys have come off daylight saving in the US. And yeah, that gives me Thursday to do any final packing or preparation I have to do before flying out on Friday morning to get to the Ootini Cantina on
Yay!
in time for US Saturday. They'll arrive on US Friday. We should be ready to roll very shortly. I should probably tweet and we can get going.
That's good. Since this is Tuesday. It sounds like this episode won't go that long, but this is my Friday night. So.
Yeah. What's your absolute chill?
Oh, an hour 50 from now.
Yeah, no.
So 20 after that hour.
Yep. Yeah, we should definitely be done by then. All right. Anything you want to talk about, or shall we just go?
I think we're ready to roll.
All right. When you're ready. Red, you are recording?
Yes.
All right.
Reconfirming mine. Yes, I'm ready.
All right.
Hang on a sec. Okay, going in 5. Hi, and welcome to the OotiniCast. No disintegrations. This is episode 174, being recorded on Tuesday, November 4th, 2014. I'm your host, Chill, along with our producer, Tio. Hi, Tio.
Hey, guys.
Yeah, a little change there. And with us today is Red. How you doing, Red?
I'm doing real well. Pretty easy week. Brakul, Halloween, leveling. That's about it. Getting ready for Ootini Cantina.
That's right, just a few days away, and in fact that's why we're recording today early, so Tio has a little extra time. And so Tio, tell us about your week and what you're doing to get ready.
Well, not much in terms of preparation aside from the usual things you need to do for an international trip. But in-game, let's see, what we did was raiding on our first day. We were back in hard mode Dread Palace. We did the first 3 bosses, took them down reasonably easily. Bestia, we one-shot. We had a bit of trouble with Tyrants and the past future boss. Still was kind of painful for whatever reason. Anyway, we got that done. Yeah. And then on day 2, Raptus did prove a little bit annoying. Raptus is the challenge boss, the 4th one in Dread Palace. And then after that, we got our second look, basically, at Dread Council on hard mode. And believe it or not, we actually took them down in, I think we saw an hour left. So, right. Yeah, the fight itself proved to be it is mechanically very similar to the story mode. Mm-hmm. So, given that we'd done that a few times recently, that was all fresh in our minds, and the hard mode mechanics were just, you had to deal with it, and yeah, so that's it. We have
felt good.
Almost finished our hard mode progression. We was reminded that we hadn't actually done the final boss in hard mode Terror from Beyond. So sometime between now and 3.0 going live, we will have to go back and do that. Just to call it good. Anyway, we took down Nightmare Nephra since we had time left and had our first look at Nightmare Gate Commander Jaraxxus in Dread Fortress.
Yeah.
We gave it a few goes and thought, well, yeah, this is probably going to take a while to get the hang of, and just called it good. So anyway, so that was quite successful, and just in time because we were not raiding this week because of the Cantina. And yeah. Now, other than that, I've just been getting some characters, getting the gear sorted out, just in preparation for 3.0. Some leveling on my sniper, and I did want to shout out to Ontur, or Carpatus, who plays on the Shadowlands. Now, he plays multiple guilds, but primarily in Sithit and X-Raided, so hello to you, mate. Anyway, that's my week.
All right, cool. First, a shout out to the chat room. Of course, it's a little late with the unusual day and all, but we do have several folks here, including Booster Gold, Casmus, Ferris Terran, Rikiri, Slager. All right, thank you for coming all. And mostly what I did this week, other than the operation, was quite a bit of power leveling on my Scoundrel, and she's now all the way through Act 2 and ready for Belsalvus, I guess. I assume. I haven't actually done the prequel to, or the opener to Act 3. It was lots of fun streaming it. Ended up being quite a bit of streaming overall, mostly on the weekend. And yeah, the character's pretty fun. Gear's not great, but overall it's going fine. I'm still staying just a level or two ahead of where I need to be. And the high level plus just high presence for my companion is making it go relatively well. So it's fun sneaking around. I'm finding that I was planning on power leveling and including like space barring most of it, but I'm finding it hard to do that. So I'm actually listening to a fair bit of the conversations. I do try to cut it off once they get to the bit where they're just saying here's where you're going to go and here's what you're going to do, because that information is available on the map. So yeah, but it was fun though. All right, so that will bring us straight to the tip of the week. We have quite a few of them this week, 6 of them. I'll start off here with Tops of the League of Extraordinary Outcasts Guild on Jedi Covenant. If you buy the Legacy Unlock that grants a repair droid on your ship, you can purchase a droid part that, when placed on your C2N2 or 2VR8, will grant a crew skill stat bonus. You may choose from a variety of skills that will help both with a crafting skill and a crew skill. Though the method is expensive, it can be very useful because neither C2N2 nor 2VR8 have crew skill bonuses.
Our second tip is from Sabo. A tip for PvP is, a while back, when the second Hutball Warzone came out, I was completely confused with the 3 tiers, but what most confused me was, where is the Hutball? One day I was camping the ball spawn, hoping our team would force the enemy to toss the ball away. My eye wandered to the scoreboard and I noticed 2 icons near each team's name. Ours was filled. In a moment of clarity I knew, we had the ball! I announced this to my guildies who, between bouts of laughing, asked if I was serious. Supposedly this feature had been in the game since launch, but I had never noticed. Anyway, my tip is for those who PvP and want to know who has the Hutball, just check your scoreboard. As a side note, I would appreciate if BioWare could make the ball carrier marker visible from above and below the player so we can see exactly where he or she is, even when we're on the first tier. P.S. Great job on the spoiler cast. Thank you.
Very nice. Yeah, and a good point. I mean, it didn't really matter as much on the original map because even if the guy was above you, those tended to be grates and so on. You can kind of see them. Yeah, and also it's much more open. So that's a good point. And right, third tip from T'Chuk on the Republic side of the Harbinger. During the Rakghoul event, you can buy, equip, and use the antiviral kits, and then switch back to your normal relic, keeping the vaccine buff, without having to leave the kit equipped. There you go.
Yeah, and Kuzay mentioned that during our takedown of the council, he actually had one of the Rakghoul relics still equipped. So, oops.
I believe the only reason you need to keep it equipped is if you're taking down the world boss, right? Because the world boss will strip that off, and so you need to reapply it like every 30 seconds or something.
Oh,
Cool.
okay. Yeah, didn't know that.
Good to know. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, our fourth tip is from Vicent, or Vicent, Sith Assassin from the Stay Thirsty Guild on the Shadowlands. With 12 times experience on class missions going on these days, I hardly have time to level a companion's affection before I get a new one to replace him or her.
Yep.
This has left me with a backlog of companion stories and affection to catch up on. An efficient way to cut down on this catch-up time is, after buying the optimal gift for your companion, and there's various guides for doing that, Dolphy's companion guide is probably one of the better ones, set that stack of items on your quick bar and slap a hotkey on it. Then you can just sit on fleet or in your stronghold, pushing that key every few seconds. It has got to last long cast time until your stack runs out. This makes the process of giving 40 plus gifts out go by so much quicker, and you don't really have to focus on where you're clicking in your inventory. I've done exactly that. When I was, you buy this big stack of gifts from the vendor, the ones you can just get for credits, and
Right.
yeah, if you don't use a quick key, it would be horrible.
It's right annoying. That makes sense. All right. Let's see. Fifth tip from Baradur from the guild Wipefest on the Freedom of Temple of Freedom ad server. My tip of the week has to do with a nifty deco I recently spotted. If you have 100%ed KDY, you can get a lovely piece of artwork showing the drive yards for your stronghold. To do this, you click on the final KDY achievement and then click on the deco icon.
Huh.
Do you have this one, Red?
The final KDY achievement?
Yeah.
And the associated decoration, yeah.
I do not, because I don't have many of the KDY achievements. Grinding that flashpoint has not been appealing to me.
Can't blame you. Not even a little bit. And our last tip is from Mariachi. With all these new alts, thanks to 12 times XP, I find myself with a lot of companions and not very many NPC kills with any of them. Great way to farm kills for the companion achievements is by going into Colicoid Wargame and blasting the massive waves of enemies that keep coming your way. Using this method, you'll quickly rack up hundreds of kills for those achievements. Now, that's clever.
That's cool.
Yeah. Very nice. All right. And by a random allotment, the winner is Vescent. So Vescent, Sith Assassin from the Stay Thirsty Guild on the Shadowlands, is the winner. And he gets an M8R3 code courtesy of BioWare and an OotiniCast provided Cartel Market pack from the latest shipment. If you'd like a chance to win the same, please send your tips to OotiniCast@gmail.com by next Wednesday. And that will bring us to the Holo feed. Tio?
Well, let's start with patch 2.10.2a that was deployed during regular maintenance, just the usual short one for a little patch on Tuesday morning, which was not that long ago from when we're recording this. Not much in it. They did fix, as was mentioned last week, the Republic and Imperial Medical Droid decos. They now function properly as vendors in your stronghold.
Nice.
And they fixed the slot machine Smuggler's Gambit that are now bind on pickup. So, yeah, I guess they weren't previously, but I hadn't really noticed. I guess that means you could put them on the GTN? Never.
Yeah, actually, I saw them on the GTN, but I mean, they were going for real cheap because, you
They
buy
won
for one
credit.
credit. I mean, I actually bought some to put in my bank just because I thought, okay, well, they're leaving them to, they're making them go away after a little while, so they'll become more valuable when that happens, but guess not. Looks like I might have to vendor the ones that I got, so. But
I
it
wonder.
wasn't expensive to do, so it's
Indeed.
not a huge waste.
And they have also added the Architects pack, the latest in that shipment, to the Cartel Market. Went live a few hours after the patch was deployed. And Dolphy has a usual preview. The only one that really caught my eye was the Dathomir Shaman outfit. And while the outfit itself is, well, I guess it's not too bad if you're into that kind of thing. It's good to see these references to Dathomir.
Yeah, it's certainly distinctive. Yeah. I mean, if you're looking for sort of like a wrap-like, sort of robe-like thing, but not like a typical Jedi, or Sith robe sort of thing, then this might appeal to you.
I haven't actually checked the history of Dathomir, but were they active at the time that SWTOR is set? Could they actually add Dathomir as a planet into the current world? Current story? Guess we'll find out.
I guess we'd have to discover because we know that Yoda, that cave that Luke goes into, was supposedly, in the extended universe, explained to be a location that a Dark Force user had passed. When did that happen? Because it could be before or after, but if whatever that ties into could actually mean that it's still a relevant planet in this time period.
Indeed.
Looks, just doing a quick look on Wikipedia. I mean, I'm not going through all of it, but it does look like there's history all the way going to pre-Republic, so they've been around a long time.
Excellent.
At least the known planet. So.
All right. Anyway, so yeah, if you've got cartel coins to burn, why not? Try your luck with the Architects pack. Alright, next, ranked PvP rewards for Season 3. Now, what they have done is announced the 3 tiers for Season 3, and they are actually a little bit different than they were for Season 2. As you know, they do adjust them based on the population, in terms of how many people are in each bracket, in terms of their
Right.
rating. Now, just for comparison, for Season 3, the lowest of the 3 tiers caps out at 1,300. Sorry. Yeah, caps out at 1,300. Now, in Season 2, that was 1,275, so it's just up by 25. And at least at the moment, and I have updated OotiniCast.com/leaderboards if you want to see just how many players are in each of the 3 tiers right now. Solo 87.4%. In group 84.9%. So actually most players have almost 9 in 10 have 1,300 or below as their current rating. And the prizes are awarded on your highest ever achieved rating in the season. So yeah, not necessarily what you have right now.
Right. So mathematically we know it'll be at least 1.2%, but it could be higher.
Exactly. So yeah, so the second tier will cap out at is anywhere between 1,300 and 1,650, and then to be in the top tier, you have to have 1,650 or above, and that compares to 1,600 being the cutoff in Season 2.
Right.
Yeah, and as Jill mentioned, the only 1.2% of the population in solo have above 1,650 right now, and 0.9% in group in Season 3. So, yeah, the actual rewards themselves, it's quite similar to the kind of stuff that we got in Season 2. There's a unique title, so whatever it is, Furious seems to be the theme this time. You will get the trophy, the bronze, silver, and gold across the Tier 3, 2, and 1. Let's see, we get the Furious weapon set if you happen to get into Tier 2.
Okay.
And in and a color crystal lockbox. Now, the color crystal lockbox, actually all 3 tiers get this. It is a unique color crystal with every stat. So it's not just an expertise stat, it is every stat. Crit, endurance, expertise, and power, which is kind of cool. So you will get that.
So whichever one you're looking for, you'll have it.
Exactly.
Cool.
Exactly.
And presumably this will only be given to the character that earns it, but don't forget you can always legacy smuggle crystals.
Good point.
Yeah.
Alright, so the Furious weapon set, that's for Tier 2 and Tier 1, the highest. And Tier 1, they also get the Furious armor set. So Tiers 2 and 1 get the weapon set, only Tier 1 actually gets the armor set, which is based on the top tier PvE and PvP gear, the Revanite stuff. So expect something that looks like sort of tattered robes, Revan style.
Cool. And then they also get the walker.
And of course, Baron Deathmark's Furious Walker that we saw with the flames on the side.
Yeah.
Kind of nice. And
I wonder why it's upset.
or at least mad. And Season 3 will end with Game Update 3.0 on 2nd December, so you have until then to try and max out your rating if you're interested.
Very cool.
And they will also they'll still have the top 3 in each advanced class, so the 96 highest across all servers. Yeah, insert Elo rant. Yeah, we've talked about that way too much before. So yeah, top 3. It'll be again a different title to whatever it was last time. Last time it was All Galactic something or other, I think. So who knows? They haven't actually told us yet. And just a reminder, you do need to play at least 10 games to actually get a rating to even get into the bottom. The tier, everyone gets at least Tier 3, but you will have to have played at least 10 ranked games to get there. And yeah, they did confirm the top 3 title will not be the same as Season 2.
I wonder if they've thought of giving 2 of each of those crystals? Because there's a lot of dual wielders,
Hmm.
and most people that I've seen dual wield, when they're at in game and they're trying to focus on how the character looks, they usually have the same color lightsaber, for instance,
It's a
in
good
each
point.
hand.
Yeah, I'm guessing not, but you never
I'm
know.
guessing not too, but
Actually, come to think of it, it would be rather nifty if they actually added something on your offhand or in your character sheet. Like you've got match to chest, if you could match to main hand.
Oh, yeah.
hmm, that would be
That'd be
cool.
pretty neat,
Match
right?
the main hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a really good idea. All right. Next, just a brief one. Story inconsistency in the what's the name of the story? Bedtime on Concordia. That we had from Charles Boyd last week. The Mandalorian story, where it was pointed out that the behavior of what's her name, Shay Vizsla, that is where she actually sought revenge for the death of her brother, is kind of out of keeping with how Mandalorians are meant to behave. In that they're supposed to, have a fair fight. If they get bested, then well, that's all good. Don't worry about it, because that's kind of how Canderous Auto behaved in the original Code Pour, and is kind of accepted as Mandalorian culture.
Hmm.
And so Charles Boyd did actually respond to that and went into a bit of detail about a possible explanation for it. And he said Shay probably did care very much about her brother. As this story exemplifies, family is very important to Mandalorians, and through all the extended universe, it does seem to be a common theme. She was still very young when he died, and I think that led her to fixate on Jedi, not just as a personal challenge to her own family and clan, but as a challenge to all Mandalorians. So she looked for opportunities to win victories over them, to prove the Mando's strength doesn't end where lightsabers begin. But once that was done, she moved on. So once she participated in the sacking of Coruscant, etc., then it was all good.
You're right.
So that's not exactly retconning, but it does kind of make sense. It's kind of nice. And Olib tweeted, I believe, to Red about the reason that the Shay Vizsla sounded familiar was because Pre Vizsla
Yes.
appeared in the Clone Wars.
Yeah, and Pre Vizsla was the leader of the Mandalorians that were militant, not the pacifists in the Clone Wars.
Right.
So,
Okay.
which is very cool. I was glad to hear that. The other thing is to be, quote unquote, retconning and to claim how bounty hunter culture is and everything, seeing as anything that establishes the culture of the bounty hunters is legend, and certainly hasn't been furiously standardized within the game itself. I think we can forgive them a little slip up.
I happen to agree. Yes, definitely. Oh, we also got that same about Pre Vizsla from Count Jegular. All right, and there isn't actually much news this week, and pretty much our last story, but it's a fairly big one, is the next live stream that they had, the combat changes in Game Update 3.0 that are coming. This starred Eric Musco and Rob Hinkle, who's their combat designer guy. And I took notes. Basically, I've watched it a couple of times now, just to make sure I actually got it all. Dolphy also has a write-up if you would like a different perspective. It is archived on Twitch, so you can watch it yourself, and if you're interested in this kind of thing. Alright, so let's just run through it, and we'll just talk through the various points as we go. Firstly, and this could be a problem based on the feedback of some people I've talked to at least, the stat rebalancing will mean that once Game Update 3.0 goes live, our level 55s will actually be, in all practical terms, less powerful than they were before 3.0.
Right.
That is, they will do less damage, they'll do less healing, just basically less powerful. And that seems to be because they want the numbers behind it and the various ways the numbers in terms of stats contribute to things like accuracy, your actual accuracy percentage and your crit percentage and everything else. You'll need more points to get to the same place. This seems to be the explanation. So the amount of accuracy on our gear and just you get naturally won't be enough. For example, you won't have 100% accuracy when 3.0 that if you did before. However, once you get back to level 60, you should be pretty much back to where you were. Now, the implication is the amount of damage you do will be at 60 will actually be not that much more, at least in theory, than it is now. Well, that's the impression that I got.
Yeah.
So what?
Okay. I mean, yeah, it'll be disturbing on day one for the people who've been doing operations and so on.
Well, here's the biggest thing. If you pre-order, you get it on December 2nd. If you don't even have access until December 9th. Everybody that's 55 that doesn't have the pre-order is getting nerfed. And they can't level up and get new gear or do anything to get there. So they're kind of shafted.
That's a good point, and as of the end of November, it's now too late to pre-order to get early access.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
They carefully waited to make sure that those not eager enough get boned. I'm actually... Okay, so they did it a little different with 2.0. With 2.0, as you leveled from 50 to 55, the stat contributions to your character adjusted as you leveled up. Surprised they're not doing that, but I kind of suspect that this has to do with the whole revamping of the discipline system and everything as well. They're just resetting the entire leveling process as well as implementing this discipline system, which is fine. I think there's probably going to be some hiccups or some painful moments for people, but at the end of the day, I mean, every single time there's an expansion, I'm actually so much more of a fan of this than, like, I remember Wrath of the Lich King when WoW came out. Day one, you went out and went to the new territory and picked up a green that out-leveled every single epic you'd earned through operations and everything. And we already knew that they weren't going to be changing the stats that tremendously. I'm glad to see that they're also doing a rebalancing of how your damage contribution works. This is normal with an expansion, and yeah, people are going to be upset that they don't see bigger numbers, but it's not about bigger numbers. It's about taking down the bosses or beating the other people.
Exactly. And it's not like any individuals are going to be sort of singled out as far as this goes. It is across the board. So, yeah, it's purely perception, as you say. So, it'll be fine. Once we all get in there and find it's all pretty much not that different, it feels the same. It should be alright.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I'd be a little bit concerned about, just because they're focused on the expansion, really is those pre-55s, or those that don't have the expansion. Just because if you want to be doing flashpoints or things like this, have they taken the time to go back to all those flashpoints and retool them for a lower damage output?
They kind of implied they had, but it was a bit unclear. They did
talk
about
leveling, right?
And they did say that, but I thought they did say something about operations as well, that they were going to adjust them accordingly, such as to take into account the whole cleansing thing having a long cooldown.
Yeah, they'll almost have
Maybe
to.
they'll also change the other stuff too.
Right.
So what Red just mentioned there, they did say they are going to speed up the low-level game as well, sort of not as a consequence of, but in addition to. So everything, up to about level 50 or so, everything will die faster, basically. So they want to try and make it not, in their words, leveling faster through the first part of the game. So that's actually kind of nice, I guess. Not that it's really a problem, but as Musker said, when you're between levels 20 and 40, it can be a bit of a grind.
Right.
To actually get through it all. And just following on from the changes, Nightmare, Dread Fortress, and Dread Palace will be now more difficult for players at level 55 because of these changes. Though once you're at level 60, it'll be back to the same level of challenge, presumably. Though they are saying that they are intended to make Nightmare, Dread Fortress, and Dread Palace an optional part of the new endgame, which means that it may actually reward ultimate comms along with what you would get from the others, the new operations, and maybe even gear that's actually relevant as well. So that's interesting.
I personally prefer not the gear, but the relevance is certainly good, and I would like, comms. I like that as an additional source of comms, especially since we would assume that they're going to be having the story mode dailies persisting. That would give them more operations to have in those story mode dailies.
Yeah, for sure. And for those of us who haven't actually done Nightmare, it's still new content in effect. If we get completely sick of the new stuff, we can always work on this as well. If it's the level of gear required to do it is about the same as the hard modes of the new operations, then why not?
Yeah, exactly. I like that they're at least maintaining the relevance. And they've done a good job so far with operations in general being so much more mechanically minded than just, surviving and doing damage output anyway. Like, a lot of people still can't clear Nightmare Explosive Conflict because the mechanics, they just can't get through it,
Right.
So it's nice to see that they're also going to keep it level relevant at the end of the game. I'm just kind of hoping they don't tie that into the whole progression system. Like, that is still old content, but I'm glad that it's available.
So hopefully it will be optional for those of us who choose to do it. That's just an extra challenge. Alright, raid debuffs. There's all kinds now. All the advanced classes get them. We also get kind of buffs and the raid lockout buffs. Now, the raid lockout buffs are the ones like the Marauder and Sentinel has now. Sentinel has Inspiration. Marauder has whatever it's called. And so we've talked about this before. All the advanced classes now have these, but they will do different things, such as giving a increased crit for 10 seconds, or alacrity, or whatever. Now, these will also work in PvP, they did confirm. They will not work in ranked arenas. And just like with the Marauder and Sentinel, that's locked out of there in arenas. These new ones will also be locked out, as you would expect. So the reasoning for the change is to basically try to fill out you're kind of encouraged now to not stack or require one advanced class. You've got to have all the advanced classes. So,
well, and if they balance it properly, even though they contribute different stats, as long as the contribution to the overall DPS is effectively equivalent, it just means you can bring whatever you want. And they all have something different to contribute, but you shouldn't be feeling compelled to bring one of each.
Right. Are we sure there's 8 different ones and that it's advanced class, or could it be base class?
No, sorry, it is 4. There's only 4.
Well,
okay.
But did they confirm that it's 4 base class, or that there are 4 of this type? Because I was led to believe there were also some defensive ones for other advanced classes.
Maybe there are more. Yeah, they didn't actually outline all of them. And previously they have only talked about 4 of these. So you're right, there could be other ones like that as well.
Because I know they've always, when they've spoken of it, they've always said Sork and Sage will be getting the primary stat boost. They haven't been saying Shadow, or Consular and Inquisitor. And I remember in that original one when they were talking about Sage, I was led to believe that there was more than those 4, but that they wouldn't necessarily be an offensive boost. Because if you think about it, it would be relevant to do an advanced class that's a tank has an opportunity to do a defensive AoE, or something like the Gunslingers, which is the Umbrella. I kind of figured that the Scoundrel would be the one that gives you the crit, but the Gunslinger is the one that gives you the Umbrella. And some of those other persisting abilities. I guess we'll see.
Yeah. There could be some really interesting synergy between all of these different things, which I wonder if there's some fights, or at least the cutting edge progression would feel that they really need to bring them all just to get the effects.
We probably would. However many there end up being.
The irony being that that's not necessarily a bad thing, because we already know that there are certain, like the really bleeding cutting edge progression groups will swap out for an alt on certain boss fights, because they do bring something, but they don't need it for all the other boss fights, or they'll respec for these purposes. It just seems that's cool. For progression, when you're that hardcore, you probably have more than 1 AC anyway. And
and for the rest of us, it probably doesn't matter. Just bring what you want, and it'll be fine. Alright, what else? Operations Training Dummy module now has all of the debuffs, just so that when you're parsing just to do it in that standard way. You'll get the proper effect. Dot classes. Yeah, we talked about this before, how they are making cleanses of dots not work if the player cast the dots. So dots from in operations, from mobs, you can still cleanse those normally, though the timer has increased, but player dots cannot be cleansed. They can be purged. That is when the scoundrel or the assassin can use that ability when they're going to stealth. But yeah, you can't be cleansed. But let's see, what was it? They mentioned the force barrier is considered still to be a purge. They haven't changed that.
What about the gunslinger dodge?
I believe that is a purge.
I mean, I know it is currently.
The scoundrel one is. I'm not sure about the gunslinger now that I think about it.
Hopefully there's more classes will get access to something like that. Now, however, you can, in PvP, cleanse all crowd control, stuns, whatever. The only thing that you can't cleanse is in something like knockback, which is considered crowd control, but isn't actually. It's got to have a duration, basically.
Right.
Any crowd
The
control.
physics still continue. All right, so I know that they're debating it right now. 100%, I guarantee you, when it goes 3.0 live, that they are not only removing cleanse as it exists in the game for PvP, they are also going to be removing any uniqueness to any of the advanced classes that have a healer option. So, commandos, sages, and scoundrels, or their mirrors on the imp side,
Right.
will no longer have a tech or force or whatever. That's going to be stripped out.
Right.
It is no longer relevant. They implemented poorly in the first place because the scoundrels and commandos have the same base 2 or same 3 if they're healers and they get the talent point. It's all 3 the same. The sage was unique. They could have made all 3 of those unique because there's 4 types, but they didn't do that in the first place. I think they're going to be phasing this out and just kind of dumbing down the system. And for PvP, it just means as a healer or a DPS, you no longer have a defensive that you can help your teammates with. Period. You cannot utilize this ability any longer unless you want to remove CC, but it's probably a poor decision under the circumstances. You know, if you could use it on yourself, that it would be another matter, but you can heal them and keep them alive. If they're stunning that guy,
Right. Well, removing
You shouldn't
CC
waste
can
your
be
time
very powerful in
cleansing.
PvP. So, in fact, I consider it a better use of a cleanse than if you could remove a dot. I would much rather remove a CC from a buddy.
see, and that's
Actually,
my thing, is I'd prefer that you still be able to remove a dot, singular, rather than 2. I never understood why they went with the default of 2, and then also that stuns are a part of that, you know. But you know, they're just streamlining and simplifying the system so that you don't have to think so much when you remove. You know what you're removing, and your options are being limited.
Though to use it effectively to prevent you using your own jailbreak, for example, requires a lot of coordination to actually get it right. I can imagine a lot of wasted cleanses going on.
Well, and that's the other thing, right? Because with your jailbreak, you're going to wait until you're white barred anyway. And honestly, they shouldn't cleanse you unless you're white barred. And so, yeah, I see a lot of that duplicate. Now, the only thing is, if you're actually in a pre-made and you have enough of a queue system between yourselves that you know you're going to be chain stunned, you could then actually pop yours early because you know that you can trust your healer to wait for the white bar.
Yep.
And that, you know, so that would be totally relevant and useful.
You can't see resolve on the raid frame, can you? Got to say, I've never looked for it or set it up so it's visible. I'm guessing it's not.
I don't heal, but there would be Can't you see it on your teammates, though?
Only if you're looking at their characters. And you have friendly nameplates on, which you probably should have.
Yeah. I don't heal. I don't know. That's a really good question. But again, if you're on voice, you can just say, hey, I popped mine. Be ready. I'm about to get white barred.
Yeah, this is one of those changes. They're going to have to wait and see how it plays out. I can sort of imagine how it's going to change how things are, but dot classes are already monsters. This is going to make them worse, obviously.
Well,
Potentially.
the irony is we just don't even know how much of the PvP community is even going to be coming with us with the expansion. So it may not be tested for months and months.
We'll see. Well, yeah. Looking at the
Well,
data
every
from
season there's been
rank-
less people participating, so.
It's true. It's true. Uh, okay, interrupts. This is just your regular interrupt that gives the 4-second lockout on the ability type. They are raising the cooldowns to 12 seconds for melee and 18 seconds for ranged. Now that's up from 8 seconds and 12 seconds respectively, which is basically a 50% increase. So you're going to have to be more tactical in how you use your interrupts. Again, from the way they were talking, this was a PvP-driven change.
Yeah, definitely. And it certainly will help classes that are more cast heavy, because obviously people won't be interrupting them as much. So, yeah. It'll be a pain when you're going against a casting healer, but you know, the other thing is that you do is you CC them. So
yeah.
You know, the irony on this one is I'm actually happier with this. Well, okay, the interrupt is a little bit of a pain that they're increasing the cooldown, but the pushback, did you mention the pushback yet?
About to.
Okay.
So what Red is mentioning is channels. When you channel an ability, you are now immune to pushback. Now, the way pushback works is if someone is beating on you, you could actually miss a tick of what you were attempting to channel as you were being beaten up. But they are fixing that, so that will no longer occur. However, you can have your channel interrupted if you are knocked back, interrupts still work and all that stuff, but it is just channels. If you're not knocked back or whatever, you will get all of the ticks from the ability, and it will do its full amount of damage.
I thought it was interesting that the resources now, the cost is per tick instead of all up front. So if you do get interrupted, especially early on, you're not paying the whole cost in force or whatever.
Yeah.
I feel like that is a straight up quality of life, very nice, and also helps to bear relevance for Alacrity. The other side of it too is I rather like not having to push back. For some reason, I recall when the game first came out, I was wondering, like, I know other games I've played had that whole pushback mechanic, but I never really understood why it was there in the first place. So it's like, unless it's interrupted, you should just be able to channel. It's already rooting you in place anyway, so unless you get one of those new utility points, but... Which, that's another thing. Have we ever seen any confirmation that... Okay, because we saw on the Sage video that they could move while they were casting, but the cast bar still existed. So is it safe to assume that you can still interrupt them even though they're running around?
Yes.
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay.
Yeah. So we just mentioned the resource cost is now, rather than you pay the full cost up front, when you initiate the cast, regardless of how many ticks you get off, the actual resource is now consumed on a per tick basis. So you only use as much resource as you manage to get off before you are knocked back or whatever, or interrupted, which is nice. Now, they talked about discipline system. They kind of referred to this previously. It's all about removing the boring passives, and thus you do get more accuracy from your accuracy rating, but they've taken out the mandatory or the passives in your tree where you would normally get plus 3% to your accuracy. So everyone across the board, regardless of advanced class, will now require the points to get the required accuracy. And this also applies to tanks, because tanks, taunts can now miss, where previously they were guaranteed. With 2.0 at least, they were a guaranteed hit. With 3.0, taunts can miss, but tanks, when they're in tank stance, will get the required 10% accuracy bonus. So tanks do not need to stack accuracy. They can stick with their defensive stats. They'll get all the accuracy they need from their tank stance. And that means not only will their taunts never miss, but all the rest of their abilities won't miss either, which is fantastic, because even though your tank isn't really meant to be doing damage, and they don't do a lot of damage, and the stance actually reduce the amount of damage they do, they need that for building threat. So you don't want to have a whole lot of unlucky misses actually prevent you from building the threat you would have got from the damage that you failed to do from those hits landing. So now they will always hit, and that is a good change.
Good. Especially, especially not only can you miss, but then a lot of classes, if you miss one of the wrong abilities, it prevents you from, doing certain stack ups and building, building stacks and doing those other mechanics that are built into the class. So yeah,
I'm very curious to see how this plays out in PvP actually, because you can miss a taunt and not mitigate damage. Could be
Mhm.
could be intriguing.
Right. I'm
Yes,
sure.
because if a player hits a defensive, and yeah, it just doesn't work on them.
I
Right,
wonder if
right.
there are any
Now,
utility points that like would increase your defense by a few percent or something that you could use even as a DPS. Because then that would be a really interesting utilization in PvP.
Yeah, yeah.
there are certain abilities in the game currently that reduce accuracy, so those might become a little more valuable.
Oh, good point.
Indeed. Indeed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know the gunslinger
Uh,
has a pretty good one, for instance.
Yep.
and the oil slick, right?
Mm.
Mhm.
That
Oh
AoE.
wow.
So, yeah, that's pretty interesting ramifications. See, this I like. This adds complexity to the game and starts
Right,
making you have to think about strategy and stuff again. This is a really cool. I know that
right.
there's going to be a lot of people really upset, but this is the kind of change I like. We're going to have to learn
Absolutely.
something new.
Yes. Yes, indeed. All right. Another just main stat passives were removed in terms of the plus whatever to your main stat.
Right.
Uh, rolled into something more interesting just as your regular progression path. So it all will sort of come out in the wash, so to speak. So you're not
Mhm.
really losing anything when you're at max level and you've got everything filled out, you'll
Right.
be pretty much the same. But you
It,
haven't lost anything per se.
it always felt a little weird if you're in one of the classes that only had the option to have a plus 6% instead of plus 9% of your
Yes.
main stat. So
Yes.
that gets rid of that disparity. Because it did weird things like certain classes, because they couldn't get the 9% on their main stat, it made main stat augmenting less valuable. Therefore, sometimes you would get power instead, and it made things complicated, but not in an interesting way, just kind of in an annoying way. So
Right.
this will actually simplify things in a way, but without making it completely dumbed down, and kind of balance things out as well.
Now let's talk about alacrity. They've, again, talked about this before, but they revealed that their intention with alacrity was basically if you have 5% alacrity, it was supposed to give you 5% more DPS, for example. That was their intention, and with 3.0, they reckon they're there. It speeds up now everything global cooldown, ability activations, resource, regeneration. It does speed up your dot ticks, so they actually will tick faster.
Hmm.
Reduces rate limits, internal cooldowns, that is. So if you have 20% alacrity, it means you can and should be hitting your buttons 20%
Can you
faster.
confirm? Because I read on Dolphy's site that it also extends the duration of the dot, which made no sense to me. Her site actually said ticks more frequently and lasts longer, and I'm like, wait, that's a double win.
No,
Well,
they didn't say that,
I,
or I didn't hear that.
I haven't
Okay.
heard that either, but I am still curious to find out whether they do this, because that's what they did in World of Warcraft. Is they made alacrity change the dots, but in order to keep the dot classes from having to spam their dots all the time if they had high alacrity, they actually kept the amount of time the same, and then it would fit as many ticks in as would fit in that period of time. So you could actually generate more ticks on the same cast.
Which
Yeah,
then
If that
made
no.
makes sense.
a stat. The reason that's relevant is because then it makes steps where certain values of alacrity are valuable and others
Yes.
become irrelevant when you're playing a dot spec.
Yes.
And I'm sure they addressed this, and they said it wasn't like they did it in WoW. It was actually the dots just tick faster.
The dodge just
And
ticks faster and it drops off faster. So
yes,
yeah, you'll be casting
and
like crazy.
But we
your
do have an
resource
increased regen.
exactly.
Hopefully they've boosted that a little bit because I do know that that was not really worth it.
Yeah.
Right.
Which also, I
Well,
know there were some conversations amongst people about how this impacted the people that don't have degrading resource, and I think they've been missing the point. If your resource doesn't get consumed, doesn't regenerate itself, okay, you're a sentinel or a guardian, this means you're not being penalized on your resource. every time you cast an ability, you get your resource like always, except now all of your global cooldowns and dots and everything else are happening faster, which also means you can execute them faster and get the abilities, get the resource that you normally generate faster. I mean,
Yes.
it makes Alacrity much more valuable, I would say, for Marauders or Guardians than any other class.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
be curious to see if how it affects the like the gunslingers, where if they go low, it actually slows down their regeneration,
Yeah.
and to see how the sort of thing affects that. Because it, if you fall behind, do you fall behind harder, or do you fall behind less hard? You know what I mean?
Right, and I'm thinking even with Dirty Fighting, in the third tree, you set it up so that every time your dots tick crit, you get resource regen. So it could actually mean that they're ticking faster, so they're critting faster, and in fact, you might end up having to find much higher value in crit again for
Right.
Dirty Fighting. Because if
Did,
you're running out of energy, then you might want to increase your crit because your Alacrity is not fighting stat
right.
value
And
against
they're
crit.
and they're reducing those internal rate limit cooldowns as well. So, if you could only get your resource back every 3 seconds on an ability, but if you have Alacrity now, it can be 2.5 seconds. So those crits will still be ticking and giving you the energy back or whatever. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's gonna be really really
like I
interesting. And
say,
in fact, I'm
yeah,
gonna have to reach out to Ufalong and Keyboard Ninja and
yeah.
get
Like I
ready to
said,
do some more conversations with them.
yeah, I am still a little concerned about, like I say, like the gunslingers and so on, to see how it affects them. But in general, it's going to be good. It's going to be interesting.
Maybe Red, once all of this goes live or whatever, you could organise a theory crafting roundtable with those two guys and host that.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
would
I'd
be really
really
interesting.
really enjoy doing that actually. Like as soon as the pre-orders release.
Okay. All right, back to the live stream. Fantastic UI improvement. Well, we'll get to the not so fantastic one. The effect procs, the little golden box. When a proc goes off, they've been intelligently designed in terms of which procs actually cause the little indicator on your ability bar. So
Right.
that's nice.
I would say that this is a nice side benefit of the whole simplification of classes as well, because it would have been a lot trickier for them to do it under the old class trees. Now that they know, well, if you pick this tree, you've got these abilities, that simplifies what they have to do.
But the really good change is the two buffs and debuffs and how they're displayed. So the way they've done this, on your player frame and on your player frame only, they've got these two things called the player buff tray and the player debuff tray, each of which can be independently configured using the UI editor. They said that you can change the directions that the buffs expand, and you can control how many buffs are in each of the little trays. So this will replace just the fixed position that the buffs appear. But that's only for the player frame. So you can configure like your personal buffs in a certain way, and I believe they said for this you can also reorder them based on the time remaining, the total duration, or the when you actually applied it. So you could do all this. You've got all this
Nice.
control over how your buffs and debuffs are
Yeah.
displayed. Now, that's for the player frame. For the target frame and the focus target frame, it's different. What they have done is they've set it up so your effects, your buffs and debuffs that you apply can be highlighted, and they've also added the sorting options. So they will be sorted, or you can configure it apparently so that they're sorted to the front or the in it. They're always in the same place. So you can see your buffs or your debuffs, and they'll be clearly distinguishable. So for those of you who are putting dots on and there's a bunch of your same class, you'll know which ones are yours because the icons are the same, but now they will have the highlight around them, and you can reorder them as well. So again, the same criteria when they were applied, their total duration, or have the ones that expire soonest at the front or in the same position. So that is awesome.
That sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in general I would probably keep mine by apply time because I don't want them flipping around based on time remaining or whatever. Like if I refresh one, I don't want it all of a sudden moving
Right.
or further out, so I have to look somewhere else. But that's just me. It might depend on the class as well.
They said they're also adding the sorting criteria, maybe that this is for healers, so the cleansable ones are sorted to the front, potentially cleansable. They may not actually be cleansable by the healer, but they would be sorted that way. So that would be nice as well.
That would be good.
So that's massive quality win right there.
Yes,
Now, if
huge.
we had quick healing, it'd be even better, as in hover over the frame and be able to do it that way. But
I believe this when
I
I
haven't
see
been
it.
able to figure that out. Yeah.
And
indeed,
honestly, I just want to be able to filter. Let me turn off the stuff that I think is irrelevant.
that would be an additional, yeah, such as your class
Although,
buffs. I really don't
right.
want to know.
Although
Or
frankly,
sprint.
if
Or
the ones you want, if the ones you want are always like bigger and right in front, you're sort of sorting them out anyway. The other ones will sort of drop off.
Yeah, because they don't have an expiration.
Yeah, I mean, if you got a boss with 53 debuffs on it, and the important three are up front, right where you want them, you're already removing 30 of them anyway.
But just having the
Okay.
option of if it has no duration, don't show it. That'd do it basically. Get rid of the ones you. But again, having a more specific filter would be nice too. What else they say? Comms. They did confirm Warzone and rank accommodations will remain untouched when 3.0 goes live. So unlike with Elite and Ultimate Comms, which are all getting converted down to basic comms, and Classic and Planetary all getting sort of merged into basic comms, Warzone and ranked won't be touched. So if you've maxed out your ranked comms and your Warzone comms, you're good. It'll just be the same. If once you get to 60, you can then buy what you want.
same as it's
And-
always been.
Yeah. So whether the whole PvP weapon swap thing still works, who knows? But yeah, if you happen to have some saved, I think I've still got a ton on my Sork. Well, who knows what we'll do there. They talked about Bolster. Now, the big change for Bolster in Game Update 3.0 is they're now taking augments into account. Right now, augments are just this extra stat that's sort of on the side, and the Bolster sister ignores them completely. And at the moment, I think the number they said it would contribute like 16% of your player's power just came from augments, completely independent of Bolster.
Right.
So some player who didn't know about augments is getting that much extra separation between them and the players who actually know what they're doing, in addition to everything else. So what they're doing now is Bolster will effectively add in. It's as if you had augments, effectively. So
Nice.
you just get the magic stat when you are
Okay.
bolstered. And they also said the expertise cap will stay the same, so it'll be 2018, just like it is now. They will not be stripping the expertise off the current PvP sets, as they did when 2.0 went live, so you'll be able to keep all that. And they also implied that if your PvP set with expertise on it will be bolstered. Now, at the moment, the way it works, I believe, is if the bolster system sees expertise on your gear, it does not bolster
Right.
that item. But the way he was talking was, yep, it'll just bolster the stats. There's a target item rating, and if it needs to add up stats to get you there, and it doesn't matter if it's max expertise or not, it will actually do it. So your PvP set that you have at 55 will be competitive with pre-60 bolster, it sounds like. So you
Interesting.
won't have to switch into PvE gear or something. At least that's the way he talked. I guess we'll see. Yeah, is there anything there? Yeah, we already talked about that. And just a few other things. Ranged attacks now have a 270-degree arc. Now, at the moment, what that means is when you're casting, currently it's 180. So if a player is slightly behind you, or just moves slightly behind you, your cast will fail because they're effectively out of sight, out of your line of sight. So your line of sight has now got a bit of a buffer. So it's basically an extra 45 degrees around. So you can really sort of shoot behind you, well, off to one side, anyway. So that's just pure quality of life. It's the same kind of buffer that if you cast something on someone who is in range, but then they move out of range before your cast ends, there is a buffer there and it will still hit them. So it's the same kind of thing. Just a bit of a bonus for range casters. They confirmed you can't switch advanced classes when the discipline system goes live. Yeah, no surprise there.
Okay.
Talked a bit about tanks and healers, because you sort of get your tanking and healing abilities earlier now, so you're more specifically a tank or healer. And how would this affect the leveling experience? You can still level as tanks and healers. Remember, mobs now will die more easily, so sounds like it should be roughly as it is now. You can do it, it's just slower.
Okay.
That's what it boils down to. And I've done that a couple of classes, a couple of characters as healers. Yeah, it was slow. In 186 gear at 55, you will do less damage than you're doing now, as we talked about. They did mention 198. Implied that would be the new top tier. That was the only level rating they mentioned. Color crystals will still have the plus 41 stat, so they're not increasing it. So those cartel market color crystals that you purchased, they're still good. You don't need new ones.
Nor are they getting rid of it, which they've also threatened to do.
Are we sure that's the top? What would that be? That's 6 to 18.
No, we're not sure. There could be extra.
I mean, that doesn't seem surprising to me at all if we know that, like, what is it? 186 is supposed to be story mode or hard mode? To get you into it.
Story mode. So that's effectively where you start. So
what
drops
198 would seem pretty reasonable for what you get out of the new ops that are coming out.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's great. Maybe there's an extra step in between. So maybe 198 is what your ultimate comms will buy, and maybe there's something else that your elite comms will buy, or that is what your elite comms will buy.
Yeah.
Set bonuses between PvE and PvP, apparently they will be the same. That's the plan. But their intention is that even though it's the same bonuses, they're not going to let you mix the sets. So even though it should, the two-piece, for example, bonus between your PvE set and the PvP set is the same, if you got to have all PvE gear for the actual set bonuses to add up, basically. So
Wait, you're saying that
you can't mix and match
PvE they have the same bonuses on. They have the same set bonuses now.
Yes.
They're not different ones from PvE to PvP.
No, they've got new ones, but they're universal.
They're new and universal, and then on the other hand you don't mix them. Okay.
Right. So if you've got 2 PvP pieces and 4 PvE pieces, you do not have a 6-piece bonus. You've got a 4-piece bonus.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's unfortunate. I mean, I'm really glad to see new set bonuses. It's a shame that they don't care enough about PvP to give them their own. But that's not surprising.
Gosh. All right, so anything else we want to talk about from the live stream? That's pretty much all they said. It was.
I'm thinking 186 gets you into story. Normally, each set of gear is 6 apart. That's a 12 gap. So the stories are going to drop you 192, and the hard mode's going to drop you 198. That makes complete sense to me.
Maybe and when they add a nightmare tier, it would be whatever above that, 284, maybe
4, whatever. Yeah.
Right.
Cool.
I'm actually kind of hoping that the starting, if you're in a full set of 186 gear, then that's the point when you're doing more damage than you are right now. I don't want it to be. I'm embracing wholeheartedly the fact that they're nerfing our damage output. If they are, then they should totally make it that 186, which is the current Nightmare content gear. You can go into story modes right away without doing flashpoints or whatever, because we don't know anything about what they're going to be giving us in the flashpoints. But beyond that, I don't want. I feel like you should have to gear up to the current level of max gear in order to be able to be competitive. I think if this is true, this is perfect. And I know a lot of people will be unhappy, but I really, really like the philosophy behind it. Who knows if it'll work, right?
Yep. I guess we'll know awfully soon, because we've only got a month until the game is live.
2 days less, even.
Yeah. All right. Now we do have.
Sorry, I was going to say, just in PvP, I'll be interested to see how the expanding arc to 270 degrees, how that affects like Scoundrel and Assassin PvP, to see how hard it is to get behind people where they can't attack you.
Oh,
Well, and it
It's
should be
obviously
relevant
much
for
harder than it
people to
was.
understand that if you are standing still, you have a 360-degree attack. It's only while you're moving that this is a change. So, like gunslingers and snipers, when they're in cover, it doesn't matter what direction you attack them from, they're still going to be able to hit you.
oh, I
Is
didn't
that
know.
true? I've
Mm.
never noticed that before.
Yeah,
Wow.
I've totally done that. What this does is actually makes it a lot easier for mobile ranged characters to use their strafing to greater effect. They can use their strafe
Right.
button and be able to hit the boss while they're running straight away. They don't have to angle their run vector or anything like that.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Let's just talk about the other 4 live streams that are going to cover all of the advanced classes. They're going to go into detail about all of the disciplines. This Friday, on November 7th, is Bounty Hunter and Tripper, and there is a schedule for the rest, which we'll link to. It's just a post on the forums.
That'll be
It
awesome.
will most likely be Eric Musco with David Demery, the developer who did the first Disciplines live stream. That was most excellent. They'll be doing it from. They'll be covering all of the advanced classes, all of the classes, and they'll do it Republic, Empire, just to kind of break it up in terms of which side they focus on.
Oh,
So
good.
there's no point in going through the mirrors.
Gunslinger. Sorry.
They're gonna they're gonna hope for 1 hour in length, but they have 2 hours allocated, so they will go over if they need to. And there's a lot to go through, so I suspect these streams will actually be quite long.
Well, they're doing 2 ACs. There's no way in hell they're going to do that in under an hour.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, agreed.
come on. If they're being remotely responsible, they're going to have trouble keeping it under 2 hours.
Agreed. And they will all be archived on their Twitch channel and hopefully pushed to YouTube as well. They didn't mention that, but it'd be nice if they did, given Twitch allows you to do that. Also, Red has informed me. All right, let's just only a few other things to talk about. SWOTOR website. This you can apparently buy 14,500 cartel coins for $99. There's like kind of backdoor way you do it. If you do it through the website, there's like an upgrade button that pops up. I can't get this to work. So it's still special hidden magic option for good people or something who aren't Australian. I don't know. Anyway, so if you really want to get the $99 one, you're supposed to pick the highest one, which is $39, and supposedly there's some kind of way of upgrading, but your mileage may vary.
Right.
BioWare refunds me on anything. I'll buy 3 of them. Say my plane ticket or my 6-month subscription, or hey, cool.
Indeed. All right. Community news. Thanks to everyone who rallied to the cause and upvoted our SWOTOR subreddit post for last episode. I just tweeted about it, and a bunch of people did come and help. It's apparently called vote brigading, and I was told don't do that again. But yeah, I appreciate that. Someone had downvoted us to 0, and I just panicked. Asked for some help. For those who use Reddit, anyway. Next, thanks to the extremely generous donation from Kevin. He said he was sorry to hear about how the Las Vegas Cantina rescheduling screwed our plans. He loves the podcast and requests that we have a few drinks on him. We will do so.
Thank you, Kevin.
Now, I did want to mention, if you haven't purchased anything on Amazon and you want to give us a hand, if you go to OotiniCast.com/Amazon, that will just take you to the Amazon store, but anything you purchase will kick back a little our way, and what we're using, the way it pays us is as a gift card, and we're going to use those gift cards just to buy cartel coins. The cartel coins fund the packs which we give away as prizes, so it goes straight back to our listeners. So yeah, OotiniCast.com/Amazon just takes you to regular Amazon, but then you can just buy stuff and we get a bit. It will not cost you a cent extra. It's just a little bit extra that we get. And speaking of all these cool little short URLs I've set up, if you want to review us on iTunes, apparently that will help people find the show. OotiniCast.com/iTunes will take you to the relevant page, from which you'll be launched into iTunes in the right spot. You have to have an iTunes account and have iTunes, which I actually don't, because I don't use Apple devices. But
Yeah, I haven't used iTunes in 3 years, I think.
yeah, but
Like, I was
apparently,
shocked to discover it's still a thing.
Very much so.
very much so. Apparently, or so I'm informed. So yeah, if you can do that, if you use a iDevice, and I know a lot of people do, that would be great. Also from our guild, Ham Sandwich, he's back. His life has been very busy with school and his kid, but he is playing again. He has set up this Jawa Junkyard concept. This is for our guild on the 28th of November, where everyone can come and trade in our guild flagship. Just trade stuff. It's like a yard sale or a garage sale or whatever you want to call it. It's a really novel concept, so you may want to borrow this idea for your own guilds, just as a social event. Just everyone bring their crap and trade it around. And finally, in community news, let's talk about the Cantina, which is this Saturday. Details, you can always find out the latest. OotiniCast.com/Cantina. That includes the location, which is the Trump International Hotel in Suite 6006. We're opening the doors at 2 p.m. So everyone's welcome at that point. The actual recording will begin at 3 p.m. And so you'll see the three of us and various other people maybe joining us as we go. We will be providing some amount of food and drinks. Eric Musco from BioWare has provided the swag, so we do actually have some physical items to give away, as well as a couple of gift cards courtesy of Kranitoko. You call them Crandom Swag, so we'll work out a way of allocating those appropriately to those who join us. All are welcome. We're anticipating a fairly small group because no one would want to travel. This is for those of us who have been messed around with the whole Las Vegas thing. We want to get together anyway. And of course, yeah, the real community cantina is in the following Saturday if you really want to turn up to that. I'll link to it if you're interested. All the cool stuff is happening this Saturday.
That's right.
Yeah. Anyway,
wow, it's going to be freaking awesome. Are you kidding me? I can't wait. And there's even, you need to go to our blog post because there's even going to be a dinner on Friday night beforehand if you happen to be in town for that. Like, join up. We're going to try and have some activities that go throughout the weekend a little bit. It's not just the live stream or immediately after.
Yes, sir. And after the cantina, who knows? We'll do whatever.
Yeah, we'll find something fun to do.
All right. That's the news.
Alrighty, that brings us to the Force Feedback, where we read out your tweets and emails. And chat room, if you have any questions to ask, Red will be gathering them now to ask once we're done with the feedback. J. Connell quote of the week, Tio regarding EA profits. A bunch of sports crap. Spoken like a trimmer. What are sports anyways? And Tio, did you want to read out your reply?
I responded to Jay. Sports are apparently something involving a lot of running around without lightsabers. How fun could that possibly be?
Brian of the
Brian of the Bad Feeling podcast responded, imagine an all hutball game with no lightsabers. Just hutball. Shudder.
All right. Mark Natris via Facebook wrote, I'm guessing on pronunciation, Mark. Hope that's right. Do you think they'll ever make PvE Galactic Starfighter? We've certainly talked about that, and we certainly would love to see it. Mark continues, I haven't played in a few months and came back to a lot of changes, but one PvP match of GSF didn't encourage a second. Some PvE would be great for training. Well, there is an actual like tutorial mode to do. I haven't actually done it, but it is available. Yeah. It's a little rough. I would imagine it's a little rough to be starter at this point, just because so many players who are still playing it would have fully kitted out, vehicles.
Yes,
and so on.
and the players who are good at it are really, really good at it, and you do tend to get owned very badly. Now, they have mentioned in 3.0 they are going to increase the requisition rate. If you're going to jump in the GSF, probably you would be wise to wait until game update 3.0, because that's when you'll start earning the rec faster, so you can upgrade your own ship faster. Yeah, but yeah, PvE, GSF, I'm sure they did mention it recently as it's not a thing yet, but they're kind of thinking about it may become one.
Right. Now, Tio, did we figure out for sure what Catalyst was talking about on this next one?
I did get a response from him, yeah.
So you may just read it out?
Yeah.
Okay. Catalyst wrote, I wanted to thank all of you at OotiniCast. They added the feature mentioned in my email. It's because of you guys. Thank you.
Now, in Catalyst's original email, he talked about how painful it was in that we had no way of pre-invading or specifying or seeing the conquest objectives up front, meaning that we had to log in early. Now, the feature he's actually referring to is the new ability to let a certain rank in your guild do the invasion on your behalf. So that was something that we did sort of talk about in the ongoing discussion. Whether they listened to us or not, or just thought of it independently, we don't know. We are forever grateful that they added that. In fact, just last night, Bill invaded Balmora for me for Ootini Nights. So
very nice.
It's great.
All right. Hru wrote in, over the past week or so, I've had a few Birthright Inheritance kits dropped from the mobs in the Open Daily section on CZ198. I'm not sure whether this is something that's been introduced with the current 12 times experience run, but I don't recall it happening before. The kits I've picked up have all been for gear items around level 32. Players who are trying to speed level some alts might find it useful to know. Might be random luck, but those items have been in the game certainly for a long time.
Be worth trying just to see if there is a higher drop rate.
Yeah.
Especially now with 12 XP, yeah.
Hru also wrote regarding Redna's apparent bewilderment at the idea of people choosing to play an MMO solo. Ironically, an important part of the answer to his question, why play an MMO, came a few minutes later in the conversation, when Tio talked about BioWare's great storytelling. Redna's question should really be, why would a solo player play SWTOR? To which the answer is that if you love Star Wars and enjoy BioWare's immersive storytelling, then you would play SWTOR regardless of whether it was a solo game or an MMO. Or to twist the question another way around, one could ask why someone who loves MMOs would play the original KOTOR games. The answer remains the same. If you love Star Wars and enjoy good storytelling, then you would play KOTOR regardless of whether it is an MMO or a solo game.
That is absolutely true. However, I would go so far as to say conquests were designed for them to be difficult and require a large number of people. An MMO is designed for people to play together. If you start designing this MMO to be played alone, then there is zero reason for anybody to ever get into in-game content.
That's true. And also, loving SWTOR, loving storytelling and playing SWTOR for that doesn't actually require you, as you pointed out last week, to actually pay for it, because you can do all that part for free. And regardless, it is an MMO, and they are still focusing on MMO stuff to do together, content, and that remains their focus, as it should be. So,
well, but actually what we're seeing is they're moving away from that. They're providing alternatives to do it solo. That is not their focus.
They have talked about soloing tacticals now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe they're trying to do it for everyone. Keep everyone happy. That's never ends well. Or maybe it does.
Well, no, they're trying to design a game that caters to the individual and the average gamer, rather than designing a good game that is challenging at certain aspects. They are backing down on the difficulty of Nightmare content. They're backing down on PvP in general. They're backing down on a lot of the group mechanics. It's one of the few things I am concerned, and we need to see after the discipline implementation and everything. Do they return to providing for this being a massively multiplayer online game? Or are they going to continue down this direction of, yeah, they've got great storytelling and they're going to have new content, but you can literally not pay a dime and experience all the story and play it alone, and just like you buy Tomb Raider, except you don't even have to buy it now. You can you can play it through and see it all, and not have to actually meet or speak to anybody.
No, I guess what they're hoping is that in doing that, you are seeing all these other people in the world, and it may occur to these permanent soloers that maybe, just maybe, they could actually do something with other people.
Right.
Yeah,
I know
numbers
that
will see.
when I play
Removing
enough,
the need for do anything.
yeah, when I played WoW long enough solo, I eventually burned out on it.
Yeah.
It took a long,
You would just
even that
stop
it took a
playing.
long time, and there's not nearly as much story telling in WoW leveling as there is in SWTOR, but it is it's certainly possible to burn yourself out.
Well, and there's a huge proponent for, like, if you don't need to do flashpoints, then you don't need to learn group mechanics to even learn roles, to even care about, basically you should go in as a DPS, just so that you can get through it as quickly as possible in order to experience that content. And there's really no incentive if all you care about is playing this game solo and exploring all that story content, which they're great at. No matter how many people you see on the board, especially if you go onto a PvE server, you're not even going to be engaging other players. Like, you see people wandering around, but that's it. It's a game that you can play start to finish without ever paying a dime.
Yeah.
More or less, yes.
I mean, I know that it sounds doom and gloom, but I think that this is the risk that they're running, and my concern is actually because I think this really is born from the fact that there is a vocal minority. They're constantly changing this game in different ways due to a vocal minority, rather than paying attention to what drives and keeps people engaged in the game. And community is the biggest part of an MMO. And this is why you see some. Yeah, and this is why you see so many people so concerned about the PvP changes and the decline in participation, as they've just fumbled the ball so many times. The PvP community itself, as a community, has shrunk, and when there isn't a community, like we've had so many people contribute to the show, they feel frustrated and don't enjoy the game as much because he's gone. So you need to help to foster these roles of community, and if there are individuals that can't play you shouldn't respond to that. You shouldn't provide them with a means of playing it without community, because the whole point of this game and the fun that comes from it is actually community. I mean, heck, that's why I like doing the podcast. That's why I'm happy to be going to Community Cantina, Ootini Cantina on November 8th on Saturday. It's like, this stuff is great because of the people we meet, who we talk to, who we get to share this with. Even my live stream and my chat room, like all of this, it's meeting people, talking to people, getting to, what makes a story even greater is when you can share it with somebody. Okay, I'm done. That was my rant.
Right. There are some people who wrote in to sort of speak to the soloists. Ray Lehman wrote in, I've been subscribed since launch, prepaid for the latest X-Pack, and I still play alone. Justin wrote in a recent episode, one of you laughed about the idea of solo players who pay for a subscription, so I felt I needed to write in and let you know that at least one of your listeners does exactly that. I've been paying for a subscription for almost a year. Sometimes I go almost an entire month without playing, so why continue paying? Convenience mostly. When other things like my Xbox, Netflix, real life, etc. stop distracting me, I like to play without the limitations. When I first started, I was dying more often and hated having a limited number of field revivals, plus the reduced XP blue. I justify the unused time as supporting something I really like. It's not exactly a fortune. SWTOR is a lot of fun for me, and I mostly play for the storyline. It's just taking me longer than the average person to get through it all. I suppose it doesn't help that I'm working on leveling multiple characters. I'm probably going to play more now that with the 12 times experience, so I'm hoping I'll finally reach the level cap. The thing is, I have no idea other people, and I'm pretty sure people would hate playing with me, so I just do the solo thing. I once tried to delve into a multiplayer type game. I played online on my Xbox years ago, and I had a bad experience right off the bat, so that's another reason I avoid the multiplayer feature of SWTOR. In closing, I want to say that I love the podcast, even if I don't always understand all the lingo. I'm not ashamed to admit that I've had to look up some of the terms you guys use. All right, Justin.
That's okay. Perfectly okay.
Yeah, I don't think we would hate playing with you. Actually, I mean, and so actually, one of the reasons we have the guild, the podcast guild, is just sort of have a relatively safe, place for people who just enjoy the podcast to play and hang out. So, if you want to join
Also,
a
let's
guild,
be honest. The Xbox community for multiplayer is worse than any MMO you could ever play.
Things
Yeah.
like 10-year-olds or whatever.
Oh, wow,
I
yeah.
imagine. Yep.
it's pretty rough. So,
Yeah,
but if
you
you
might,
want,
Justin, if you do actually want to take that step into group stuff, you probably find it's not as bad as the Xbox.
if you're on the Harbinger.
With us, at least.
All right. And at Finchley have solos of all flashpoints and even operations, even if they drop nothing. I'd like to see the stories. Interesting.
Yeah.
Just basically a super story mode of even the operation.
Yeah.
Right. And Christopher S. via Facebook wrote, just listen to your podcast and your solo ranked numbers. Great show as always, but down to the meat and potatoes. I'm a casual PvPer. I'll be raiding alts, doing my dailies. I made a habit of logging on daily to do my daily PvP quests. So I'm planning on getting my PvP gear and working on my rank set. Then 2.7 hits, and my hard-worked gear is not bottom level gear again, and my 2 to 3 pieces of ranked now need to be traded in with 2,000 or so ranked comms to get best in slot PvP gear. But that's the grind. So ranked PvP rewards are announced, and I go to do my 10 matches, and every match I'm harassed, verbally abused, and cursed at because my armor isn't top tier PvP armor. I skip Season 2 because I don't want to hear the BS, so I queue for Season 3 because there's people shouting on Fleet that there's no one queuing. So I do queue, and it's the same nastiness and crap. I put forth that there's no one queuing not because it's broken, but rather because these elitist PvPers are driving people away. Also, I was at the Community Cantina in New York City, and the first question out of the gate was from a hostile PvPer.
Yeah,
Anecdote.
well... You reckon? It's not always like that?
I mean, the first question out of the Seattle Cantina wasn't a hostile PvPer.
So, maybe it's that particular server? Or is it...
Well, it could be the server, it could be the location, it could be the time period. I mean, I imagine before we heard anything about the expansion and, Dread Palace, Dread Fortress was out for a year with nothing new.
Yeah.
You could have some hostile PvEers.
That's true.
I mean, granted, there are fewer progression guilds than there are PvPers, so maybe their voice is a little louder in PvP, but...
Yeah, and PvP tends to be a little more loud and aggressive of a group of people anyway.
Comes with the territory to some extent.
Yeah, I mean, it would help if you could find a group of 3 other friends to actually group with and do group ranked PvP. But yeah, as far as solo queue, you can always turn off chat and treat them like robots and just play the game. But yeah, it does get a little nasty sometimes. Yeah, it's sort of a catch-22 if they're going to complain about not enough people queuing up, and then they're going to complain when you do, just because you're not top tier gear, then
there's also something to be
themselves in
said
a
about the
quandary.
fact that there's a certain degree of frustration because season to season, the community itself has shrunk, right? So you have fewer people playing, they're getting more frustrated, they don't feel like they're being respected or addressed, they get more frustrated, they get smaller, there's fewer, but those few that still remain are really dedicated, they really see the potential, they really want to see this work. But they don't see anything happening, and now there's a boiling point where, okay, there's only a few dozen of them left, but they go to it because they feel like that's the only place where they might actually be heard and maybe get a response, and then of course they express themselves poorly because they've been ignored or discredited in every other way that they've tried to communicate.
Interesting point.
Yeah.
All right. Well, moving on. Turg wrote, I hate to say it, but Empire is much better than Republic, at least when it comes to the rat ghoul outbreak. 1. The mission pickup on the fleet strongly advises you to avoid travel to Corellia rather than encouraging it. And 2. The fleet has audio announcements like, if you are infected with the rat ghoul plague, please arrange for your immediate incineration.
The best part would be if we could actually go somewhere and be incinerated.
That would be awesome. Yes.
Dirk also wrote, is it wrong to like the Imperial Balmora music because the first part feels like the new Star Trek movies? Yes.
Yes. I listened to both, and I can't... There's a very slight resemblance, but it's a bit of a stretch.
I guess
Drawing a long bow there, too.
Yeah, it's all J.J. Abrams nowadays anyway, so... Lee of the Viperous Legacy, at Viperous87 on Twitter and Twitch, writes, hi everyone, thanks for the great show you do every week. I was wondering what time do most Aussie players and guilds do operations? Reason I ask is because the only real time I have to do group content is around 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which I think is 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Australian something time.
Eastern Daylight Time.
Okay. With the 12 times XP, I was thinking this would be the best time to make a new character to try out some endgame. Thanks and keep up the great work. What do you say, Tio?
That's about right. In the evenings, it varies from guild to guild, of course, when they're doing their progression or their operations. But yeah, you should be able to find someone. Harbinger is the best place to look, of course, because
right, being the West Coast
Aussie guilds tend
PvE
to be.
server.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if they're playing on a PvP server, it'd be the West Coast one again.
Yeah.
All right, makes sense. All right, Ben Jacobson writes in, do you know of any class story summary or web showing how each of them relate? The 12 times experience has me wondering if they ever intertwine on planets, or maybe a nice broad summary showing each planet, what each class has you doing and when, so to help me understand the big picture.
I'm not aware of anything, but the information is covered in Wikipedia. They summarize everything in detail. That would make a fantastic spoiler cast.
Yeah.
Just covering
It's pretty interesting, too. Yeah.
I'd come back for that.
And we know that there's certain companions that know each other and so on, too. So.
Well, let's consider that a long-term project, but that would be awesome.
That would be really, really cool.
All right. And Red, have there been any questions or anything to discuss from the chat room?
Yes. So Barryman was able to confirm concerning the $99 for 14,500 that also in game this is available. If you go into the cartel market and then click on Add Coins, there's a $4.99 for 450, $9.99 for 1050, and then the fifth option is 14,500 for $99.99.
I'm still not getting that in game. I did check that as well.
Right, and also though, Beware, who I believe is in Sweden, is not seeing this option. So it looks like it may very well be an international difference. I'm not sure if it might have something to do with the currency that you have set up with the game, because obviously you're playing on an American client, right? But somehow they're filtering that they know that you're not paying in American dollars or something. I just don't know.
Maybe easily be able to geolocate us based on our IP, both from the website and from the game, of course.
Right.
Yeah, it's most likely that.
So,
well.
But other than that, the only question from the chat room was strip club?
TBD. Safe. What some people want to do, that's fine.
I can say I've been to bachelor parties and we split different directions. It's not my bag, baby, but I got no problem with others doing it.
It's a free will.
Right, just like it wasn't Austin Powers' bag either, right?
Exactly.
All right. Just a final word. We're going to be recording next week's show on the Saturday, so that means that next Wednesday there will not be an OotiniCast. The one that we record on the Saturday will be next week's show, and I'll publish that basically at the normal time at the end of next week, and then we'll be back to our regular recording the following Wednesday.
works. Excellent. All right, that's the show.
So just to
Oh,
confirm,
sorry.
there's
Go ahead, Red.
no gap, right? This week, then we've got our weekend stream, but then we'll be right back at the normal time next week.
No, that's not what he said. He said the
Okay,
opposite.
So we will be off for an extra week.
The show will be published as per normal, as in it will turn up in people's feeds at the same time.
Okay.
As in next week, next Thursday or Friday, they will get the show that we record on the Saturday. But then when
Come
we
out
get to
next week at
record
our
next
normal time.
Wednesday week, yep, on
Right. Okay.
So
Good.
2 weeks
Sorry,
from tomorrow.
Right, that was my personal clarification.
Yeah. So the
That's
next
fine.
next recording is 2 weeks from tomorrow.
Got a
the
week off.
19th.
Well,
Yes.
at home.
Well.
At home.
Yeah.
Normal recording.
Cool. So, and anybody in the chat room, either chat room, I'll do a live stream at that time.
Cool. Makes sense.
That's it.
All right, that's the show. If you'd like to play with us in the Ootini Knights Guild on the Republic side of the Harbinger server, or in our
Ootini Rage.
Guild on the Empire side, do a /c join Ootini to join the Ootini channel. Then ask for the quiz that lets us know you're a fan of the show. You can email questions and comments about the show to OotiniCast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter using @OotiniCast. You can find contact details for all of us on our website, OotiniCast.com, which includes how to subscribe to us using iTunes, Stitcher, and the rest. We record the show live every Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. Pacific. Go to OotiniCast.com/live to find out how to join in. Our theme song is from Mevio Music Alley. Check it out at music.mevio.com. That's MEVIO. And thank you to the chat room, and thank you, Red.
Thank you very much. See you in Vegas.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
See you very soon.
All right. We'll just do the thing in a minute. Yeah, I've been rewriting the. I'm trying to tighten everything up here. Just
I noticed.
It's getting a bit long in the outro.
There was a
Fair
lot
enough.
of chop from Chill at the end there. Thank goodness we record locally.
Indeed. So that's that. Chat room, thank you very much for listening. We will try and live stream the Cantina. We still don't know whether that will work, but we're going to try it. I'm not sure when we'll switch on the camera. We may do it, or the whole live stream, we may start it early, but we'll see. So we'll have a sort of pre-show when we're all together. And
Cool.
Are we going to do it the same way as normal?
how do you
Through
mean?
YouTube and OotiniCast.com/live. So the goal
so.
is that we will start the show at 3 o'clock.
Mm.
But
The actual real
hopefully
show.
we start recording and let people join in the chat room and stuff well before 3 o'clock.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And if you've got any questions that you want to ask us that we'll answer, please do so during the, or send them to us in advance.
And
Or
those of you on Twitch, OotiniCast.com/live, 3 o'clock Western on Saturday. That's where you need to go because I will not have my Twitch stream backing this up.
right. Yep, we're going to have to have some sort of backup solution, but we'll think about that. Anyway, thank you, everyone. And you'll next hear us all from Vegas. Yeah. All right.